Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Calie and Gunny podcast. Today I have a special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Thomas Manchester, here on the mic.
Woke up glad I'm happy to be alive today. You don't understand the pain that I've been in. Hating myself, wishing that I didn't need to know. I wish for the best and be thankful for the blue skies, thankful for the lullabies. I don't wanna waste time, love every moment alive, every moment alive.
So Thomas, how have you been?
Exceptionally upset and volatile.
Why do you feel like this?
Prescription medication.
Really? What are you on if you don't mind me asking?
More like what I'm not on.
Gunny, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Excited for our first special guest on the Calie and Gunny podcast.
All right, Thomas, I'm going to give you this mic. I'm going to let you talk for a little bit.
So I mentioned prescription medication. That's the latest chapter of my life. Being in withdrawals and going through a lot of changes from being on SSRIs, SNRIs for ADHD and depression, which I think resulted from a car accident when I was 5. I have a scar on my forehead here. Whiplash, a lot of disconnection from my body, and I'm grateful to be alive for that. Had a lot of, I think, disassociation for most of my life, and then still experiencing puberty. I don't remember much of my life here and there, but I read a lot of books. I kept my head down. It seemed to be the most comfortable position to keep my head in, reading a book. Harry Potter was like the first thing. I grew up in a church here, and there's something significant about the Bible. You know, like John 3:16, whosoever believes have immortal life. So I was raised like that, like seeing pictures of the crucifixion, and now I'm wondering, you know, like why we don't have iconography. You know, you become that, like through my studies of getting into my body or like healing the body or like experiencing the healing of the body from that accident, and growing up wanting to do backflips or be able to run. Like I always had difficulty doing those kind of things. I preferred just laying down, watching TV, or sitting like hunched over, reading my book. I didn't really feel my body much. So when I started going to the gym, and then like 5 or 6 years later, going on an adventure into yoga, like different things seem to help me get to different places. So I've had to understand, you know, the body, the mechanics of the body and mind and science, chemistry, and just kind of learning what it's like, you know, being an addict, you know, having parents who were drunk or drinking and using meth, who knows whatever else. I related a lot to Eminem. You know, his story, my mom did more dope than I did. So I was like, I don't know if that's true for me, but it connected to me with a lot. And then like 3 Days Grace with pain. So there seems to be some consistent themes of drugs, pain, and then Stephen King with horror and misery, like having terrifying dreams, nightmares that would seem to come true in some really bad ways, or really forthright and straightforward ways. Based on what I saw, it not really been myself most of my life. Yeah. So, you know, that leads us back to a previous conversation we had where, you know, mentioning psychedelic drugs or chemicals, like LSD, psilocybin, MDMA. Having experienced these things, I experienced a state of bliss or happiness, joy that I never experienced otherwise. It was always dissonance. That's what rock music, you know, Guns N' Roses and 3 Days Grace.
Using psychedelics, what was that like?
I think the first time I was in college. Someone said they had some LSD, some acid, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss?
Mm-hmm. And the first time I just laid on a couch, and it brought me into this altered state of consciousness where things just started seeming wiggly, wavy, you know.
And you enjoyed it a lot. You had a good time with it?
It took me out of, you know, day-to-day life. Like, I didn't have to think about what am I doing after this, where am I going, you know, like it seemed like those kind of things take a lot of processing power or like juggling, you know, like my schedule all the time in my head, and it seemed to be a curse or something like that from probably head injuries, head trauma. And makes me wonder, like, am I the same as everyone else? Does everyone else think like that? I think that's why I was so shy. I was always thinking about things, or like my brain struggled to do things because of damage to maybe the neofrontal cortex, and subsequently like hematoma in the brain. Even if it's slight, it can disrupt brain changes or development. So I've had to understand a lot of things, like how these chemicals, compounds interact with the mind, the brain, how they connect. Mind, body, spirit is the brain. The brain's part of the body, but then you have mind that everything is in. The Gnostics said, I found, that the mind is all. So if you influence the mind, it influences the body. And it's led me on some excursions into, wondering what that was about. Like, Buddhists know the mind very well. So reading, Buddhist and yogic texts and experiencing through psychedelics through that lens of their language, of their understanding, I've been able to make sense of my life. And like, I feel like I'm finally getting to somewhere where I can understand what I've been through and maybe help others gain some semblance of hope when they may be isolated or feel like they can't connect. Anxiety, I don't think that's a normal state for humans to be in. And I used to say that's just the nature of society. Maybe that's what I think. Maybe the limitations that society has placed on legislature and a lack of knowledge, maybe just ignorance, bureaucracy, even perhaps led me to be a shell of who I could have been a long time ago. And I'd like to see the future, like when people can experience these accidents or when trauma happens, how do we make a speedy recovery? They continue to go on through, like the Bible, John 3:16, and then uncovering, like no poison will hurt you. I don't quite recall that verse. So uncovering how like religion or magic or spirituality, I'm not sure what to call it, but the phenomenology of life itself that keeps us going, or what seems to be that. Football players, for example, have injuries, yet they keep going, and then sometimes they're even better after. It's like, what's up with that? These adaptations, maybe it's just pain, no gain, right? Yeah. So when we experience those kinds of things, like, I don't think it should be intense. Just going at life. If you love your life, you lose it, right? But then you gain it back because it's like, right? We're going to like grow over this, overcome this. And I just love that. That's like the American spirit, I really like that. It's like challenging us to keep going even after experiencing that pain. I feel like that's kind of what I'm going through right now. Some type of mental agony or detachment from reality, or derealization, disassociation, depersonalization, and putting myself back together, or like after accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, having that walk with someone that allows me to put everything that I've learned about into perspective, into some kind of cohesive map of meaning.
I suffered through some derealization it wasn't a long period of time. Someone sold me some spice. I don't know if I told you about that. Yeah, back about a year ago, last October, somebody sold me some spice. They didn't like me, and I didn't know they didn't like me, and I smoked it, and I suffered for. I thought I was dying. Every day I'd wake up and be like, yeah, this is gonna be my last day, and that is really one of the. It sucks waking up like that every day and thinking like the worst of everything, honestly. And I quit smoking. I took a tolerance break. I quit everything. I quit drinking sodas. I quit fucking smoking cigarettes. I like legit thought I was gonna die. And after a while of just like focusing on me and trying to figure out who I want to be, I felt I'm starting to feel now picking up the pieces of what life should be, honestly. What do you got, Gunny?
Man, I really like the way you broke everything down on each topic, because I've some stuff, I've heard of and just never got, thoughts about. No, I haven't met somebody.
We're not on everything.
Yeah. I like when you, like, what you've been talking about, I never, I heard of it, but I have have never had someone break it down like you did, explain it, and I really, enjoyed that, because hearing your thoughts about it, and you tell me about that car accident, and depression. My depression, I had a very bad father growing up. I don't talk to him, and there's just some things still in my head that I try to get out, and and try to hold back. And it's tough. It's a very tough situation. And, with how you said about football players, CTE has been a very bad problem. Like a football player, rest in peace to Demaryius Thomas. He was an NFL player. Last year, he got in a car accident around this time. During the summer, he retired and he passed away. He was having seizures, and he was telling people that he didn't want to be alone, because so that way when he had one, he knew someone was there to be there. And just the one time no one was there, he had it. That's something that I worry about for football players and people going through medical problems. It's just, he was he's young. He was like 30 something, early 30s. And he was a very talented receiver for the Denver Broncos. And, he, rest in peace again. He played for several NFL teams. He won a Super Bowl 50 with Peyton Manning. It's just problems like that, I feel worried about for players. Breaking a thumb is different than, head problems and stuff. It can, there's a lot of players that had to cut their careers short because talented, not as talented as the other players. And that's just something that goes through my head every day. I'm worried about an NFL player, and, some people may not. It's just what the problems 10 years, 5 years, 6 months later down the road could be. So, yeah.
Yeah, everybody that focuses on head trauma, I know that can really lead to really bad down the road problems. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like a compounding interest almost. If you can't feel connected to people and you start making mistakes, or you have like emotional distress because of that repression, it just bottles up and then you finally explode. So how do we let go of that? A lot of people turn to boxing or something. There's a book called Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and talks about Gestalt therapy. So acting out things, as if they're there. You could even talk to a tree, pretend that's your dad, and tell them how you feel. Because sometimes it's just getting our end out. Like a lot of times we're not going to get the response that we expect or want, because we don't really expect a response. We want to feel heard or seen. But knowing that everything is listening all the time, and that induces some kind of psychedelic concept to life, or panpsychism is what it's called. Seeing that and programmers will use a rubber duck to explain a problem, and they'll like talk it out step by step to determine what's the next step in the algorithm or to the solution to the problem, right? So when you can talk to anything like that, just get a rubber duck, a doll, or a human being is always preferable. But sometimes, if we're alone, we might go crazy, talking to ourselves, but we're really just talking to, I guess you could say spirit or consciousness. And because all there is you. And when we talk to someone else, it's like uncovering and remembering who we are, unless we're like getting together for, a specific purpose, because then we become that. It's like an act, right? Like we are the podcast, or we are the chat, the conversation. And, but then reflecting on that in meditation or in silence and space away or isolation, if we recall back, we start to uncover more. And I wanted to learn about this because I didn't understand how I survived that accident. And I wanted to understand the Christ sacrifice. Why was it important to accept him as a Lord and Savior? Because I think a lot of people, that sounds kind of strange, or at least that was a way to me. And so I project that on other people, right? Because we project our own beliefs onto other people, so that when we identify how we feel about someone else, we learn about maybe a limiting belief or shortcoming within our own mind and psyche. But it's not really a shortcoming. It's something that's inherited or adopted from the environment we were raised in, or some belief we haven't challenged yet. John C. Lilly says, in the province of the mind, there are no limits, there are only beliefs to be transcended. And then those beliefs are further limits to be transcended. And it goes on and on. So we can continuously become more open and loving, and to the point where, you can share that love with everybody and help them find their way back into their self, because you can see yourself in them and vice versa. So if you see with the eyes of love, and, that can be difficult when we have anger or repressed emotions, right? Or a lack of reality, that knowing that we are all connected. But how do we reach that realization? If drugs can take us away from that or take us to it, how do we do it sober-mindedly? And so I went about this my own path, but I think that there are a lot of people that are lost and searching for something, that connection, and that's what it offers. So I feel like it was my calling to like realize, okay, this isn't helpful. This isn't helpful. What is? And I finally got so broken that it just happened. Like I just put my arms out and said, Christ is my Lord and Savior. You go like a whole year having a regular routine, like going to yoga class, biking, smoking weed, hanging out with people that are doing drugs, and it just, you start seeing the same thing over and over and realize like you're in a rut. It's just a thought loop, and it can create dependence. Moderation I think is important. Like I don't think being completely sober, like I like enjoying stuff here and there, but if I was like living a day-to-day life where it's stimulating and I'm always creating new connections with people, going out talking to people, doing this every day, would I want to, or would I just want to share what I've learned and like keep going on? It's a completely different vibe change. You can feel it, and sometimes we're not sensitive enough to it because of derealization or disassociation. And a lot of this stuff starts for men or males, especially with circumcision, and that's perinatal birth trauma. So I had to learn a lot about like holotropic breath work and the medicinal nature of different things, like marijuana. Why was I so attracted? What about it kept drawing me to it? What about it is addicting? It's like some sense of security or safety or comfort that we feel that we long for, that we have innately as children.
Alcohol too for people.
Alcohol, yeah. And so learning about all these different branches of neuroscience, and in some roundabout way, basically get to the point we're trying to love ourselves in the best way that we know how, that's available. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've tend to fall to the addictive traits as well. I hate that I feel that I need to do certain medications and things to feel happy, but I hope to fight that off and live a sober life. I know that.
So I think that's the general consensus when people start feeling this, and that attaches shame and guilt towards wanting to feel better. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So I advocate, Oregon completely decriminalized drugs already. Marijuana legal in a lot of states now.
We got Delta 8 here.
Right. So what I'm saying is we should legalize or decriminalize every drug and make sure they're high quality. Because if people can experience that and then find their way into trauma therapy through yoga, like mind, body, we connect all different parts of ourselves. We don't need to always use these things, but they are medicines. And the Bible says, eat, drink, be merry. Eat, smoke, be merry. Like, as long as you're in a happy mood, like a high vibration, you're feeling that love, there should be no shame or guilt about doing anything. You're not hurting anybody else. That's what I've always believed. If it makes you feel better about yourself, like body dysmorphia or like feeling bad about how we look or something is such a trivial matter, but it's so difficult to get over sometimes. It took me years of weightlifting, even using steroids. And that's a big leap. But when like things constrict our body at such a young age, it creates an imprint that is hard to break out of. And it takes a lot of work. And that means even going against the grain to find what you need. And it creates like this adventure for us. But I don't think it's necessary. And it depends, Even cesarean section birth is traumatic. We're always trying to go back into the womb. I think that's why we're attracted to women or sex. It's like this innate, it's in our nature to try to go back inside. We don't want to be out, like as a spirit, like the body is a vehicle. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So it's like, how do we, like, I think that's the biggest danger or risk that I found with drugs. Some things can kick us out of our body, like if we're a spirit, so I'm learning about that, and I'm wondering, what is the most appropriate or what tools are necessary for what jobs. I think that's like, what am I trying to accomplish? What do I need? And then realizing that if I'm a spirit, like I'm in bliss, like this is all an illusion. So derealization is like realizing I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. So, but it can, when we engage with the physical senses so much, it can be the delusion that brings us back into the confusion. So I'm wondering, like, as long as we know the guide, like how we feel, or if we can talk to our spirit, or our consciousness, if we can communicate like that, what is the what is the goal? I think to have a good time.
I think so.
Or if it wasn't for me, like for my experience, I wouldn't have ever had like a good conversation. I didn't feel like I could have a good conversation because of what I experienced. So I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I'm saying for people willing, some things like MDMA and psilocybin, particularly, that's why they're especially helpful for veterans. Like if you look up Johns Hopkins University and MAPS, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Study in California, there are organizations that are already working on this, that have been, even since the 80s. In 1980s, Texas, you could go to a club, a rave, and buy MDMA like you were buying a drink. And I'm wondering, if you look back, where are these people now? I think that'd be a good research topic. People post-recovery, how are they different personality? Is it a different spirit? Is it a different personality? What is a personality? These are fascinating questions to explore that I've been uncovering through my walk with the Lord.
That's awesome, man. Now, where do you think we go when we die? Now, personally, I think I heard that before you die, your brain releases DMT. So I've always thought, since I found out that DMT gives you the same, like the frog, isn't it come from a frog? Like it's a poison.
5-MeO DPT or DMT, yeah, from like frog skin. So I'm not sure about the neuroscience. I know that's a common theory or hypothesis. I think in those very instantaneous reactions, or experiences, you go through a portal in your mind and something else takes over, or maybe the Christ takes over. I don't know. It's fun to hypothesize. That leads me back to like question of memory. Is memory a function of the mind, the brain, or is it a personality or spirit that's imbued into like a story or an act, a character? So like if you call upon a different name, would you experience life differently? Would you, if it overtook you, if you integrated that name into your being through maybe like chanting it over and over, and I think that's the point of bhakti or devotion. What you concentrate or contemplate on, you become. So if you contemplate or focus on the Christ or see the iconography there, if it sticks in your head, you start to become that. Because the nature of consciousness is formless. You are formless. But you can experience what you want. So based on what you want to experience, you may have to use different names or spells, you could say, sounds. That's all it is. Like, we're learning how to correlate lines to sounds when we start writing the alphabet. And then it's basically sound mathematics. A sentence, yeah. So we're creating a new frequency. If you look on here, like when you're mixing, you can isolate different bandwidths. It's the same thing. You can emit a frequency and then just contemplate on that. And if it's imbued with a certain meaning, that's like creating a sound sigil. And that's all like a letter or like a shape is. When we look at marketing, this swoosh, just do it. That's associated with that. So it's association that we're in our mind. And we're building like, how do we create this big picture? Oh, wait, a picture's worth 1,000 words. When you create a picture or a painting, it's imbued with the story that the artist is thinking about whenever it's created. So if you contemplate on like the Mona Lisa, maybe you could understand the artist's perspective or the story of Mona Lisa by becoming that and then understanding yourself.
That is insane.
So you can do the same thing, like taking pictures of yourself or creating your name into a new shape.
That could also help you with your body dysmorphia. Yeah, if you just like take a picture of yourself and just think, hey, I'm not that bad. And if you just believe you're not that bad and you keep going and every day you just look at this picture and you take another picture and you go, I'm not that bad today either. You could just keep going on from there.
Even better, instead of thinking in the negative, I think that could create some interesting accounting schematas. Like if you see the negative balance is actually seen as gain in accounting because you're spending money, right?
Yeah.
So psychologically, you're spending negative energy so that you can bounce back, right?
Right.
But you could just keep climbing. You can just come up with new words and then you just associate it with a feeling, an emotion. So that's what I think is so powerful about certain chemicals, specifically marijuana. You could give yourself a new name on marijuana, or you just have a new name. You come up with it on marijuana, right? And you're very high and you feel great, right?
Yeah.
Or cannabis or hemp. I like hemp. Like you can find different strains for, right? It's all about the feeling. So
Yeah, okay, I got you.
yeah, so then you associate a name with that feeling. And then you can condense it down into a symbol, and then you just keep that symbol on you, and then you're like, wait, I'm like that all the time. And then you can always be high, or you can always be in that vibration, or you can always be in that emotion. Energy and motion, right? The sine wave.
Right.
You are a wave. You know, like the wave generation, right? Yeah, it goes back into physics. You know, like all this stuff, like biophysics, that's like the electromagnetic aura of the body. You know, you have blood circulating that has iron in it. Yeah. All this stuff is creating like a field around you. And so these subtle things that are in the mind, like how we feel and the words associated with it. So by changing the words, we change the association, we change the feeling, we change who we are, because then we can change how we feel based on our language. So that's why when people talk about a high vibration vernacular, it's like, what vocabulary do we use to associate ourselves with higher way of thinking? And then going beyond that, how do we acknowledge things like Jerry Springer, which anger or yelling or wrath? Like, how do we see that as just an act and we can enjoy that even? You know, going beyond all that and just seeing it's all drama. As Shakespeare says, life's a stage. So if you're the actor, you can feel the emotion, but are you that emotion? So then it creates, you know, that detachment, that derealization becomes a superpower then. You know, like everything you struggled through or experience, it's like learning. It gives you space to observe something.
Different perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can get into like this witness state where you're always just like in a theater just eating popcorn.
Yeah.
You're just enjoying the show. And you
Is
can.
that where you're at right now? Are you enjoying the
I
show?
yeah, I enjoy the show as much as I can, though. You know, it's a state of realization that's not always stable, and that's the kind of work. You know, like when I started going by Penrose Atoms, I was on like 20, 30 hits of LSD that my girlfriend at the time gave me, that her friend gave her, that was just in her fridge. We decided, let's just do all this LSD. So we put drops of it, and on the come down, I saw myself in the mirror, and I said, "You are Penrose Adams." It just came out of my mouth. So then I started going by that, and I took on a completely different personality, and that's what allowed me to come back and to understand who I was with a different lens of language or perception.
You had to become Penrose Adams.
I became Penrose Adams, and then yeah, it's interesting though. All these different names, and you can like that's why I got this tattooed. I am. You know, what am I? Whatever I say I am. That goes back to Eminem. I am whatever I say I am. If I wasn't, then why would I say I am? When you say like I am disconnected, well, do you want to be? Is that what you want to be? And then you say I am not disconnected. I am free. I am liberated. I am charismatic. You just imbue that emotion, the energy. Like you use that resistance. You use that resistance to push back that negative. Then becomes weight, right? You take the truth that you're feeling, and it becomes iron, because iron don't lie. If you go to the gym, just remember that you're lifting yourself up. You're lifting up your negative beliefs. So when you have some negative beliefs, you can go to the gym and say, I'm lifting myself up. You know what? Because you're just using that as weight to get bigger and stronger in the mind. So you go against that. I'm disconnected. No, I'm not. I'm picking it up. Now I'm going to be, I overcame. I am overcoming.
That's
you know,
awesome. That's some real inspirational shit right there.
Curls for the girls. I am overcoming.
Now, do you got anything you want to say?
You know, one thing I really like about you, Thomas, is that you have said so much that I always want to know about stuff in life. You know what I mean? Like
Gunny wants to know. Gunny's he's a want to know kind of guy, and I'm the same way. I am loving every second of hearing you speak, bro. You really heighten my my thoughts, and you make me understand life a little bit more, or a little bit more clearly than what I have been. So, dude, it's awesome.
You know, you're the type of person that I look at like, you know, that's someone I want to listen to. That man can tell me anything. You know, you have told me a lot that
You could be a cult leader for sure. You could definitely be a cult leader. It'd be awesome.
you know, like because see, I don't know how old you are, but see, to me, I feel like you, in 10 years, you can like have your own type of, you know, good therapy type deal, and you can, you know, I see a lot of good in you. I really do. Like, I see so much positive in you, and like what you have told me, I'm just like, wow. You know, I'm in a good way. I'm just like, dude, that's something now I think about. You know, your tattoo saying I am. You know, I'm thinking, wow, he's really, you know, breaking it down. You know, somebody like, why you got a tattoo? You know, you sat here for pretty much 30 minutes saying about good of it, saying I am. This is who I am, type deal. And I love that. I really love that about you, man. You just really broke it. You broke it down topic by topic. And one thing I like to say, you know how you said, like, where do we go when we like die? You know, when heaven. You know, this is just my thoughts, and I always had like dreams of this. To me, it's like you relive life. You know, heaven's forever. You know,
maybe like a resurrection?
like type deal. Like I feel like you, to me, like you know, heaven's forever. You know, to me, it's like you relive life, and you know, like when I'm, you know,
Life is forever.
life is forever. You know, I might be gone at 32. I go up there, and I'm continuing life, but like. I stay at the age of 32. Does that make sense? Like, you know, I just don't get older. I don't get younger. I just stay that, you know, and I'm living a good, you know, I've lived the life, the good life, and that's the rest of my good life up there. And it's like, I just feel like that's just what I think. And I think positive because, you know, that's just who I am. You know, that's just what I think about it. I might be 32, I might be 22 when it happens, but you know, I just feel like you're living your good life. There's obviously no negativity there, and it's just you're free and you're safe. You're in a safe spot. Nothing bad can come to my life, no more. So yeah.
Very good, Gunny. I'm gonna change the subject a little bit. Now you are a musician, correct? An artist. You want to talk about that? Talk about how you started making music and where you plan on going with it?
Also, to answer your question, when you die, I think Ram Dass wrote a book. Everywhere you go, there you are. So, there you are. I don't think you don't go anywhere. You're just there, and then I think it affects function of memory and whatnot. I think to answer your question, with art, with music, I started out.
Have you always wanted to do music since a young age? Or?
My grandma wanted me to play piano. Got one over there. It's a little detuned. It was always a little detuned. Sticky keys here and there. It didn't make much sense. I wanted to. I really like music, right? Always enjoyed it. It was an escape for me. And it helped me like voice the thoughts or feelings that I didn't have. So it helped me learn to feel. So I wanted to create more music, and then I just fell in love with like wordplay and just.
Who's some of your favorite artists?
Eminem. More recently, Bus Driver, A$AP Rock, Tyler the Creator, Danny Brown, all those guys.
What aspect of their music abilities guides you to them? Like, why do you like those artists so much?
The charisma, the energy behind it, you know, the emotion, you know, getting pissed off, and just like I think sometimes that's some of the first emotions we feel, because it's like we've been asleep or dead practically our whole life, you know, straight up possessed by what ideas other people may have of you. So music, especially just practicing and writing, you start to uncover what comes out of you and like what's in you, and then you can see yourself change. I think that's what's beautiful, like the essence of change. I think Ellen Watts said something about that. And just listen to people talk and read a lot. And then that led me to reading a lot, developing story, then hearing that in like Eminem, you know, Slim Shady, development of characters, and then experiencing all that firsthand. And sometimes, you know, if you don't actually do things, you know, like with his Slim Shady stuff, it's violence. But did he actually do that? No, but sometimes if we can write it into a story, we can experience it or imagine it, and that's the release of it. You know, sometimes, you know, just getting it out.
That's how I do a lot of my music. I just imagine
Yeah.
stories and things that has happened in my life.
Mm-hmm. Exaggeration, even hyperbole.
Or like if I see a TV show,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, I want to write a song about how he was feeling when that girl left him.
Yeah, and that's like character development, because you're learning how to feel like someone else, and like that develops empathy and allows you to connect with other people. Yeah, so I think those are just skills that I had to learn, like after an accident, you know, not feeling anything, just feeling numb. That's what it led to. I don't know what else to say about music. I did marching band. I just really enjoyed making music. It was something about it that's transcendent. You know, I think if I had committed more to that, I don't know. It kind of got boring to a point where you're just practicing all your scales. And when you can do all 12 scales.
At the same time, I guess you could say, or any other.
Yeah, so I think sometimes maybe an aspect of boredom. You know, maybe if I had more advanced teachers, or if I had a more developed curriculum and a stricter adherence to certain things, and maybe more guidance with structure, all that kind of thing, maybe I would have committed more to one thing. But at the same time, it allowed me to understand all these different aspects, like
have all these.
physics and whatnot, and that allows me to rap or rhyme about anything, you know, and connect even more words. Like, there's I think, who was it? This guy like freestyled for 24 hours straight. So like, if I didn't have all these ideas to develop story and then interconnect everything, like a theory of everything, you could say, how would I be able to do that without creating some sense of redundancy? You know, more conciseness with a story where it's always evolving and kind of going. It creates like this psychedelic fractal nature, like the Mandelbrot set, you know, where you zoom in on something, it only gains more detail. Or when you zoom out, you see it as something else. You know, like a coastline problem. If you take the length of a coastline on a map, it's going to be a different length if you scale it out rather than if you walked along a beach, because you see there's so many different things, different little edges that you'd have to account for along the shore. How do we really measure it? You know, there's always more. There's always someone else that could say it's measured differently. So music, I started out with marching band, then I got Logic Pro and started putting samples together and then writing. And yeah, I always wanted to make music for myself.
You made beats as well. You made your own beats.
Yeah, a lot of times. I mean, I listen to beats a lot, like listening to music. So there's sometimes I would like want to create like a certain sound, or like if I want to work on the bass line, I'd listen to songs where I like the bass line and then try to recreate it so I could understand it step by step.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That takes a lot of creativity.
Yeah, I was living by myself most of the time. Like, I stayed to myself, so it was just something to absorb myself into. And you know, then even that, like the way we talk about things, it's very revealing about ourselves and how we view ourselves. Because we usually notice what's in us. Like, the outer is much like the inner. So how we learn about ourselves and who we really are is by noticing, observing, and having some sense of detachment from what we're saying, even, and just letting it come out, and then noticing that we talk about ourselves. And like, the self resides within us all. That's something like with yoga, like we have layers to us. Like, the food body is like the outer layer, right? And then like the deepest part is the self, or the Atman or Brahman, where we're all connected. So then there are just derivations. So we're all derivations of infinity. We're all smaller infinities, but then that's the nature of infinity. It gets confusing because there can be larger and smaller infinities. Vsauce on YouTube has some explanatory videos on that kind of content. It really boggles my mind. And that's what I like about it. You know, you can just talk about this stuff and it's just like, whoa, life is awesome. It makes no sense, but it makes perfect sense. Like, you get to a certain point where you're just appreciating, like, the graphics.
Yeah.
You know, like, have you ever seen Off the Air with Adult Swim?
Off the air? Oh, I have. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes there's no way to describe how some of these things transition.
Yeah,
or,
that
like,
shit's
if,
hilarious.
yeah.
That first episode they had is funny.
So,
So off-putting. Some of it can be so off-putting. For real.
off-putting is it's like short skits, short comedies, short just animations, right?
I love it. That's good. I love Adult Swim.
Yeah. Me too.
Eric Andre show, all that.
Eric Andre show. You can't spell American Dream without Eric Andre.
Yeah.
AM, Eric Andre, AM. I saw that on his Instagram or someone's Instagram on us. Oh boy.
You like Rick and Morty?
Rick and Morty's fantastic.
Who do you think you see yourself as in the character in Rick and Morty? Who are you?
Rick and Morty.
You're Rick and Morty? I feel like I'm Jerry, man.
Probably Summer.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Jerry. I don't know, you know, like, there are aspects of all of them. So I think what's more important to notice is not what character, but what attributes of these characters do you notice? Because that's what's within you. So you can boggle it up into a character, but then you start taking on more qualities of that character.
Yeah, and start to become that character.
Right. And so you could balance it and just I'll take Jerry's commitment to his family.
Yeah.
You know, like the good quality, right? And then maybe Rick, yeah, he's just like, well, like, he wants to kill himself. He's a drunk, but he goes on all these wild adventures because he knows nothing matters. So he's just going to go push the limits of science, basically. And like, he's just holed up in his garage until, you know, his daughter has a son who can go on adventures with him. You know, it's like he did all this, advancements just to go on adventures and just do whatever you want.
That'd be an awesome life to have, to just go fuck it and go to space and fight aliens.
Right. And that's what's cool.
Not give a fuck.
And you can do that. Like, you will. You know, how do you not know you won't? Like,
Sure.
if you go down like any kind of mind expanding journey, it seems like all these ideas get pushed out on the outside so you can experience it. That's what I've learned. Like, a lot of things you'll notice, like, there are certain plot trends from cartoons, right? Or books you read that you'll notice play out in your life. It's like we absorb them when we're younger, or when we're in a trance, or when we're calm. And then when we forget about them, they start to manifest as experiences. So you can program your life experience to some degree, possibly. That's what I'm curious about. You know, like, now that I've gotten to this point very recently of unlearning or uncovering all this, of unlearning. Thank you. How, like,
Relearning to a T.
rise against re-education through labor. You know, like labor, like giving birth to a new you.
Yeah.
So,
Doing it yourself.
yeah, so if you were going to parent yourself and you knew there was a kid inside you, what kind of content would you feed him?
Yeah.
What kind of content would you want to experience? Would it be different or the same? And then that creates an interesting conundrum, though, because you're limited based on what you know from the last life, you could say. And then, like, you start to live it as a kid again. So, and you say, like, going up, you know, we're always just moving around to some degree until we find stillness. And to find stillness, we have to have balance on every other point, right? Like a balance beam. It's going to keep tottering until we find out exactly what creates balance for us. And that's, I think, you know, experiencing everything, every emotion, every logical fallacy, you know, every limiting belief, and learning that we're always going to keep going forth until, like, you get rid of all your beliefs and you know nothing. I think that's in the Bible too. Like, if you're dead, you know nothing. So it's like you have to really live your life to actually die. So I think that's when you can understand the mysteries. You know what it's like.
You said you have to live your life until to be dead. Is that?
Yeah, or as Xavier Renegade Angel said, "What doth life?"
Yeah. Yeah. You have to live your life to be dead. Is that how you said it? How did you say it? You said,
Yeah, I think you have to live life until you're dead.
live life until you're dead. Did you come up with that?
No, and then life begins.
Yeah.
But it's not life because you know nothing at that point. Then you're just experiencing.
We need to put that shit on t-shirts. Live. That's crazy. That's mind blowing, man. You're motivational for real. You should do podcasts every week and just motivate people. You could really get out to a lot of people and help a lot of people. You really could. I know you're helping me right now, helping Gunny experience. Is there a?
I mean, everything I'm hearing is, I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. You're helping me out and making me learn stuff, and you, I'm like he said, you need to do a podcast. You like pretty much every week. You just need to like what your thoughts and type deal, you know, of help, you know, helping people and all that. You're a motivation guy, like. You need to write a book. like if you like, you can write a book. Literally, you can write a book. You can. 13 books. You can. I don't see. Like, I could see you writing a book. I could see you being a teacher. You know, motivation person. You know, like a professor. You know, you're just you have it all. And you know, like a counselor type deal. So like, cause I feel like you know, when people they go to counseling and all that, you know, they're talking to someone they don't know, but that person knows. You know what I mean? That's who I like. Yeah. You to me, you're a counselor and you're helping me out. So like now today, you know, you helped me and Cal out. You know, that's what makes me happy. That's why I'm really glad that you're talking.
And everybody listening to
and everybody, you know, everybody's gonna listen to this. Someone may want to contact you and talk to you. And
if we put like your
Yeah, and that's just something. No, not your phone number. Okay.
No, we're not gonna do phone number. I can put like
Okay.
Instagram or something like that.
Gmail. I mean, like I'm putting my Gmail. You never know with people nowadays. But that's just I feel like you're helping a lot of people, and right now and when this is done, I feel like
You have to start somewhere.
you got to start somewhere.
This is our second one.
It's our second one. Like we spent 8 hours recording 2 podcasts, and none of them filmed. And guess what?
The other night we went to film a podcast, and we recorded it the first time, and I had this shitty ass mic, and it didn't record. Like you could barely hear them. And then we did like an hour of that one. And then we realized how bad it was, and we're like, okay, we'll redo it. And we filmed it in the camera. That's why I don't have a camera, because my camera broke. And I never pressed record. I got fucking drunk as shit and never pressed record on the fucking podcast.
An hour, and the next one we got the camera to work. It was charging the whole time. Next one we talked for an hour and 30, and like hour and 25 minutes in, he was like, dude, I didn't press record. So it's 3 a.m.
Well, yeah, it was. Oh, it was also 3 a.m. and I just. Oh, dude, it was rough.
So we just went to bed, and like 12 o'clock the next day, we got it all done though. So yeah,
Grinded it out and edited it all on the same day. I was fucking tired yesterday, for sure. Do you have any questions?
I guess you could say, you start learning that with English, right? And then that's the stories that you grew up with were English, presumably whatever language you know. Then you find other stories through other cultures, through other religions, and you can embody that. And then if you just go through all of them, you start noticing the similar abstract patterns. And then that's what I want to work on. Like you said, writing a book, writing a new Bible, maybe something that goes beyond the Christ story. You see that played out in so many movies, like The Matrix and Resurrection, right? Life, death. What like?
The new Matrix movie?
Is it good? I kind of fell asleep. Like, it's kind of like a rerun. You kind of like, I noticed that like after you see it a couple times.
I've never seen any of them.
And I think that's what helps life start to go by, and you help become so present, because you start to your intelligence analyzes patterns and your own thoughts, and then other people's behaviors based on different situations. So like by reading books and like by talking to people about their trauma and whatnot, like you start to see how we're all alike. And that helps you stay really present and pulls you out of that, because then you start feeling like you're not alone. Like we're all right here. And that,
Kumbaya.
yeah, Psalm 133, brotherly unity. Like there's so much stuff that we go through, especially with just things that happen. And it's interesting how we're all similar. So I'm wondering, I think that's the big question that I'm pondering right now. One of them, I'd say the most important one. What kind of story could I create that could become embodied within America or the world at large to help stop violence, crime, and maybe institute more compassionate, loving, Unitarian ideals, and where we can see everyone like as a student, and we're all just learning about ourselves. And by noticing, like this book called The Celestine Prophecy kind of talks about this. How could we get more and more people on board with that? A yogic textbook I read said everyone's capable of raising their level of awareness. So how do we raise people's awareness to this in the most efficient way? Is it perfect as it is? In the Tale of Two Cities, was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Is anything going to get better? Could it get better? Or like...
Is it just going to stay neutral?
Or everything's just happening. Something's happening. And that's like... always true. So, I don't know. I think that goes back into some kind of ain't no comparison. Yeah. Maybe I should just write my story, my book, or maybe come up with different characters. Like I wanted to talk about Atlantis. What if we could turn into the fish? The Christian fish. There's this fish symbolism there, right? So with more conscious awareness, like people like David Blaine can hold their breath for hours, like very long periods of time, right? Divers go in the water. Michael Phelps, What about yogis who are so in their body, they can dislocate their body and then swim with their head, all that, and then there's this spinal undulation. You can become the fish. So what if you can go beyond that and actually go underwater, and there are cities that we don't know about, but it takes like such a level of physical mastery to find those kind of places. I'm gonna drop the mic on that because like that's something very recent that I've considered, like with my physical training. Like I've gotten like a glimpse into it. That
How do you train for that?
exactly. Well, breath control, which is pranayama.
How would you do that? How would you do breath control?
Starting out with something like breathing in for 4, holding it for 7, breathing out for 8, and that's something I started in marching band. Right. So it's not like it's complicated, but some of these things could take a lifetime, and you have to contemplate on it, like objectively concentrate on it for so long, and your body starts to morph. Or maybe like, I don't know. See, these are some things that I'm not really confident about talking yet, but they're like things I'm meditating on, or yeah,
Wanting to learn more about.
or receiving information, I guess, from that. I want to communicate more, because what if we could actually develop a society where we're learning yoga or hatha yoga at a young age, and the Indian have a caste system, right? So becoming more structured, we could implement a better society that could adapt and even purify the water, like through the body. Like the body can do everything, right? Like Jesus could raise people from the dead by or something like that, right? He would groan and walk. And we don't quite understand that. That's where, like, I was really fascinated, like, understanding who this guy was. That's what led me to, like, where I'm at now. Just wondering, and it led me to yoga, like, in India. Like, he was in that area, right? There's some texts where his name was written, or he was written into a book, or that he came by there. I can't quite recall the name of the book, but there's a book called The Yoga of Jesus, too, you can find on Amazon. A lot of this stuff connects to Gnosticism and yoga. If you really want to get into the nature of it. And then, like, how does healing happen? How does someone heal with their hands? So this kind of gets into more esoteric, or even you could say occult, or magic, like different ways of describing things, but it's all come back into like the body. How do we learn the body? He knows the body. He knew the body. And there are lots of other people like that, but it's hard to find people like that. Like I've seen Chi masters or Chinese. There's a guy on YouTube. He can start a fire with his hands, just by control, conscious, willful direction of energy. You can start fire. You can create heat. I mean, the Buddhist monks. There are monks that sit in the mountains. I say Buddhist monks, but probably some different branch. I kind of generalize a lot just to kind of get the point across. Through Tume, just through breath control, you can create heat around your body that can melt snow. Through breath control. Wim Hof talks about this kind of stuff. I mean, he can sit in like ice cold water and actually melt the ice. He was injected with a bacteria, a toxin, a cytotoxin, or something like that. I can't quite recall. But basically, just through breath control, you can willfully purify your body or heal itself from anything. So I think teaching people how to heal themselves is one of the most important things that I've learned, that I want to share, like through books. But like, how do I captivate an audience with that? I have to kind of hook it into like a story that can personally relate. And I think the most predominant and most important people to reach are those that have been circumcised, because it wasn't our choice.
Yeah.
And by overcoming that, there's so much sickness that comes from dis-ease, anxiety, like tension in the body. I mean, it pulls a lot out of you, and it's not natural. I don't think it was meant to. Like, I think that's part of what King Herod did to try and stop the Christ. Kill all the little boys. How do you do that without actually killing them? You put a scalpel in them. Like, all this stuff is very significant symbolically. So I think that's where a lot of the work is geared, in my mind, is geared towards. That's what I'm praying for, chanting for. Freedom for all the little boys that have experienced that, including myself. I'm not even sure I've healed. I kind of went into a state where I said I wouldn't wake up until I'm 33. But I don't know what that means exactly. So there's things that even I say sometimes I don't know what it means, but they keep coming back to me.
Just those thoughts hit you.
Mm-hmm. And and that kind of messes with me a little bit, because then there's this idea that the word in Matthew, the book of Matthew, that the book the Word was with God, and God was with the Word. So does it happen just because it's spoken? Or I believe that the Word was like, it was more like a frequency or a cosmic vibration that Yogananda talks about, that was emitted, that created everything, that everything was derived from. So when we speak as though the Word was manifest as like what we say, what we experience, we can go beyond that very easily, because that's not the case. But I think there are people that believe that, and because they believe that, and if we're derealized and we don't know the truth entirely, like, you can say anything you won't necessarily experience it. So that's where, like, we say will comes from, like your will to live, and you have to fight through what's happened to you. I think that's what some people, or they want, the opposition, you could say. And I think that gives us that idea from the Bhagavad Gita in a metaphorical sense, that gets us to go beyond the senses, like our brothers that are fighting us deal with the senses versus those that are more subtle, like will or time and imagination. Kind of summarizes a lot. Like, thanks for listening. I appreciate this. Like I said, I wouldn't normally do this by myself. One, I don't have a microphone right now, but yeah, if y'all want to do this some more, I'd be happy to.
Dude, this has been amazing. We're about at our hour, but I've had a great time. I mean, you blow my mind. Everything you talk about, you blow my mind.
I said I can't wait to go back and listen to this when it's all said and done. Thank you for taking your time and all that, for real. Sorry we couldn't get down here earlier, but I'm very glad. Thank you for taking your time for us and talking to you and all that, and telling people, talking and all that about your life and all that. Some people are not comfortable talking about stuff, but thank you again. Can't wait to post this and go back and listen to it, and you can listen to it, and I can't wait for the future for you, honestly. Like I said, you need to start your own. I mean, we're
all manifesting right now.
Yeah.
Things for everybody.
Great things for everybody, for sure. So yeah.
This has been awesome. Before I give the mic back to Thomas to close him out, I just want to say back to the mental health. If anybody is out there struggling, going through derealization, depersonalization disorder, just depression, anxiety, we have our contacts in the link below. I mean, hit us up. We are here for you. We love every single person that's listening to this. Anybody who needs any help, we're here for you, and we love you. Here you go, Thomas.
Shanti means peace in Sanskrit. That's what I was told, at least. Hopefully I'll be tuned in more with y'all. Thanks for listening.
Y'all subscribe. It's been awesome. Thank you for listening to the Calie and Gunny podcast.
Driving down these back roads, and my heart feels so low. I need a hand to hold. Where'd you go? I just don't wanna see you go. You're alive today, my good old friend. You're alive, you're alive. The sun will come and rise again. It's all okay.